Hi, everybody. It's Scott Leckie from Democracy Tomorrow. How often do you think about the population of your country? Probably not a great deal, but let me just tell you one alarming fact. Well, let's make that several alarming facts. First of all, we have 8.2 billion people on planet Earth. That's already a lot, obviously, far more than we've ever had before. The United Nations and other independent observers predict that it will peak at around 10 billion people and then steadily head downwards after that. Some people think we may have peaked already. And if we look at current demographic trends, the population growth in societies, there's a lot of evidence that says far from having too many people, soon we may have not enough. Now, I don't know what the exact answer is to the ideal number of human beings on our planet. It's probably the amount of human beings that are on the planet at any given time, because all humans are priceless and irreplaceable and invaluable and should enjoy exactly the same rights and responsibilities and prospects for a full and prosperous, healthy life. For a society to flourish, for a society to grow economically, for a society to be able to do the things needed to secure the full and prosperous life of everyone, a population is needed. An average family needs overall to have 2.1 children in order to keep an absolute equilibrium at the population level at which a society finds itself. So any country in which the average number of births is less than 2.1 per woman, per potential mother, is going to lose population in the absence of in-migration to the country to make up the difference. Looking at the CIA list, the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States looks at 240 different countries and territories across the world. So, 193 of those are United Nations member states, and the remainder are territories, which are not member states of the United Nations, but usually under some sort of colonial or other administration. So out of the 240 listed, how many have negative population growth, or in other words, less than 2.1 births per mother in 2024? It's a very shocking number. That number is 203. 203 countries and territories out of 240 measured have less than 2.1 babies per mother, which means their population growth in the absence of in-migration is going backwards. In some instances, the number of negative population growth is exceedingly high. Like in the Cook Islands, in the middle of the Pacific, they have minus 2.31 as opposed to what's needed plus 2.1. American Samoa, minus 1.74. Some Eastern European countries, Latvia, minus 1.13. Bulgaria, minus 0.66. A whole range of others. Japan, minus 0.41. The list goes on. The Czech Republic is on this list. The Republic of Georgia is on this list. Taiwan is on this list. China is on this list. Even China, with 1.4 billion people, is going backwards. 0.23. Remember, they need to have 2.1. And there's countless others. You can look it up. Point is, the overwhelming majority of the countries of the world are not producing more than 2.1 babies per mother, which means their basic population level is going backwards in the absence of in-migration. This is clearly one of the strongest arguments for immigration, because if these countries do not somehow make up for the losses due to fewer and fewer women having fewer and fewer babies, the country will economically go backwards. And we've seen this in a whole range of countries. There are reasons why rural areas in so many parts of the world are depopulating. And it has to do in part with this. It has to do in part with the enticements associated with living in a city. Also just the basic job prospects living in a city. But there are reasons that Italy is offering €1 houses for sale on the internet. Look it up. It's real. There are reasons why similar programs are in place in Japan, country which has been traditionally very reluctant to accept permanent migrants. And you can apply these scenarios to an ever-growing number of countries that realize that there are very severe consequences to having a population in decline as opposed to a population in ascendancy. This is the reason that Australia has such a pro-immigration policy, for instance. Australia takes in anywhere between 200 and 400,000 new immigrants a year on year, for the past decades, ever since the end of what was called the White Australia policy. Yes, that's true. There was an official policy in Australia called the White Australia policy. Look it up. You won't believe it, because it's definitely and very fortunately not in place anymore. But many, many countries are starting to realize the negative effects that can accrue because of negative population growth. Russia is another case in point, where the population is declining dramatically. And unless they get new migrants, or they somehow encourage women to have more children, problems are going to ensue. Many countries, China included, I know Hungary has a program like this. I believe Italy does. There used to be such a program in Australia. A range of other countries have these financial inducements. Have more babies, get a $10,000 baby bonus, and things like that. But very often, particularly in China, apparently, women don't want to do it. They want to pursue their careers. They know that raising a child is incredibly expensive, as families know all across the world, and for all sorts of other reasons, some of which are maybe psychological, some of which are, just purely financial, whatever the case may be. Such incentives rarely achieve their objective. But the simple fact that such incentives exist clearly shows that governments know that they don't want to go backwards. And in many countries which are reluctant to accept immigrants and not understanding the incredibly good things that immigration brings to countries at so many levels, unbelievably deep levels of societal improvement occur when immigration is not just allowed but encouraged. And societies strengthen as a result of that, as has been shown time and time again throughout history. Many countries continue to be reluctant to embrace the idea of immigration, and that's why their first port of call is to encourage women to have more babies, rather than at the same time saying, and immigrants, particularly skilled ones, come. We welcome you. We will make life easy for you here, as long as you participate along with us in building and developing our country. So have a look at the lists of population growth in the world today, see where your country is located, and see what your country is doing to ensure that your population doesn't decline too much. Because as we've mentioned in other videos, yes, it can have some benefits. It can reduce crowding. It might reduce housing costs because supply far outdistances demand. It might reduce the traffic on a Friday afternoon. The list goes on. Pollution levels might go down, but there are also extreme and severe consequences of societies that are increasingly aging with not enough workers to do the work needed and pay the taxes needed to care for the ever-growing number of senior citizens, which is the fastest growing age group in many countries. So that's just another way of saying, if we had easier immigration pathways to more and more places, bearing in mind this loss of population, combined with the unquestionable fact that ever more numbers of people are going to need to emigrate from their current countries, their current locations, because of the impacts of climate change, together we can try to use these two processes and find the best way forward, find a win-win situation, whereby countries and particularly cities and municipalities that have lost population but are in climate neutral or climate positive locations that may have less climate impacts upon them can become essentially climate displacement havens. Havens where people can come, they are welcomed, they are facilitated, and they become active participants in the local society, rebuild the economic base of the place in question, and find a long-term housing and residency solution for their family when they can no longer live where they are used to living because of the impacts of climate change. That's enough demographics for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, tell your friends, like, and help us grow this channel and put the message out there. There are a lot more world citizens in the world today than people realize. And if all of us work towards a world where everybody everywhere has the same rights, the same responsibilities, and the same economic and other prospects, the world will be a far better place than it is today. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon.